Morning. Happy last day of August. This feels like the first month that actually moved fairly quickly. So here comes fall, which I'm good with because that's my favorite time to be outside. My name's April Claxton. I, by day, work with a variety of nonprofits in town, and by morning, evening, weekend, whenever I can fit it in, I love to be outside. Recently started a company called Among the Trees where I'll actually be leading forest bathing walks, whenever it's safe to do that. So in the meantime, just wanted to share some background about what forest bathing is, some of the science that has shown what we all kind of intuitively know, that being outdoors is good for us, and just talk through some basic forest bathing practices that you can do on your own. Before I get into the details of what the practice looks like, some things that you can try, we'll just address the name forest bathing, because I know that term, it's actually a translation from a Japanese practice that was started in the 1980s, Shinrin Yoku, and translation causes some pause and some side eye sometimes. This does not involve water, getting wet, taking a bath. It's really thinking of the word bathing as an immersion or soaking. So thinking of it as bathing in the forest atmosphere, soaking up that natural goodness, and really taking in the forest through our senses. So we'll just address the name before we get too far in, because I know that it's an catchy name, but it's not always the clearest description of what this means. So a little bit about, I think, what we all know intuitively, and that is some of the science behind why being outdoors is good for us. I think any of us that spend time regularly outdoors, we know this, we know we feel better, we know it's good for us. And now science is actually proving that. There's scientists actually here in Washington State are some of the leading scientists at UW. Around the states, Finland, South Korea, Japan are some of the places that have really been diving into this science about why nature is good for us, what we need to do to get those benefits. And all the science really shows that there really is a growing consensus. Being in nature has a lot of health benefits, both physical, mental, and emotional. Benefits to our general well-being, and also that can address some specific symptoms that relate to anxiety, depression, even ADHD. Some of the studies have shown that being outdoors, great for the world we live in right now, can actually be a boost to our immune system. It increases vitamin D, can help decrease blood sugar for diabetics, helps reduce blood pressure, muscle tension, can reduce anxiety, sadness, anger, fatigue, and also helps to reduce the production of stress hormones. On the positive side, being outdoors can really just add to our general positive outlook, helps to increase that sense of meaning and purpose in our lives, can help increase relaxation, increases memory, attention, imagination, and creativity, and just generally helps to restore our mood, can boost both calm and energy and vitality, and really it's just general rejuvenation. Interestingly enough, I think our bodies are so wired and have evolved outdoors that some studies are finding we don't even necessarily have to actually be outdoors. Some of you may have heard it's a pretty regularly cited study that has shown that if hospital patients have a window that looks outside or looks onto a tree, they actually have fewer negative side effects, can tolerate pain better, and hospital stays are shortened. Studies have even shown some of the emotional mood benefits come even from looking at nature scenes. So that's always an option too. If you can't get outside, put up a nice poster and turn on some nature sounds. I highly recommend getting outside if you can. And some interesting studies are showing that actually time in the trees, you get an added boost of some of these health benefits. Part of it is because trees really have that concentrated high amounts of oxygen that are being shared with us. And forests are also full of phytoncides, which are the natural oils that a tree produces, both as part of their defense system and also part of how they communicate with other trees. And studies are now learning that this exposure to these phytoncides can also help boost our immune system, can help boost anti-cancer proteins, can decrease levels of stress hormones, help us with our sleep, just decrease tension in general, helps again decrease anxiety, anger, fatigue, helps stimulate a pleasant mood, just generally makes you feel more comfortable and relaxed. And a bonus for us and where we live is that some of our evergreens like pine, cedar, spruce, these are some of the largest producers of phytoncides. So we live in a great part of the world to really soak up these health benefits of being outdoors. And we have the best of both worlds for a third layer. There's an added benefit of being outside when it's raining, especially if it's raining for the first time in a while. I think we all know that smell. Well, we can smell last night or this morning. It's the first rain we've had in a while, and there's that very distinct smell that we get for that first rain. It actually has a name. It's petrichor, and that name, that smell is coming from these molecules that are being released by certain bacteria that have built up in the plant oils on the soil and the rocks and have collected there, and the rain helps to release those. That specific bacteria actually is used in some of our commercial antibiotics. So if you want the full effect, go spend an hour or two outdoors in the woods right after it has rained. So that's a little of the science behind it and some of these health benefits. More so for me, I kind of use those sometimes as a boost if I want to go outside but maybe feel like I should do some work or do some chores or do something else instead. Those health benefits I use to kind of remind myself that no, it's okay to prioritize that time outside. It's good for us. It's good for me. So a little bit about forest bathing itself. It is really something I think we often do instinctively. It's actually a very simple, straightforward practice, but it takes a little discipline, especially in our fast-paced world, because it's a very different way of being outdoors. It's very slow. And I think a big thing for us, there's no destination. If you're forest bathing, you're not trying to get anywhere. It's not like a hike where you're trying to get to a destination. It's not a jog. It's because it's not exercise. It's really just about spending time in a place and experiencing nature with all of our senses, and actually working through those senses one at a time to get that deep experience, soaking up the sight, hearing, taste, smell, touch. It's a great way to just calm, take a pause, which is also needed, I think, in this world, get out of our heads for a little while and let our bodies experience where we are. One of the tips that I really come back to is if you need to breathe through your mouth, you're walking too fast. So that's a good way to judge if you're really moving slow enough. And just that kind of reminder, I guess, to ourselves, if you feel yourself wanting to just get through it, is that reminder that you're not trying to get anywhere. You're just out there to experience and to be. It's ideal if the walks or the time outside are silent. Means either leaving your phone behind or putting it on silent, or if you're going with somebody, agreeing that you're just going to try not to talk for that time. Social conversational walks are definitely a very different feel than a forest bathing walk. And I think, again, during our COVID world, that chance to have that silent pause and let go of a little of the uncertainty, stress, anxiety of the times is a big added boost. You can do this anywhere. If you have a trail near your house or a trail you like to walk on, that is lovely. That's ideal. If you have a park, it works just fine. Sitting under a tree in a grassy area on a park bench would work great, or even in your yard or on a balcony. Or, like I mentioned, worst case, put up a poster of a tree and turn on some nature sounds. But if you can get outdoors, anywhere, that this is really about more of where are you actually going to do this, finding a place that's convenient and easy and comfortable for you is better than trying to find the perfect chunk of woods. If you can carve out 2 hours occasionally, that has really been shown to kind of convey the maximum health benefits. But even 20, 30 minutes and you start to see some of those health benefits. So we'll walk through what a forest bathing practice actually looks like. As I mentioned, it's slow, it's relaxed. You work through one sense at a time. I recommend starting with some kind of grounding practice, which really is about rooting yourself, connecting your feet to the earth. If anybody listened to Carolyn Watson's talk, that's a great amount of information about just how powerful and sensitive our feet are. So taking some time to really connect your feet down into the ground. If you're in a safe, comfortable spot, maybe it's a good time for a few minutes of going barefoot, either sitting with your feet in the grass or walking on a nice smooth rock, someplace that is safe for bare feet. But really, or just wearing, I like to wear some lightweight, more flexible sneakers when I'm out so you can feel the texture of the ground. And you're really paying attention as you walk to what the ground feels like. Is it hard? Is it rocky? Are you walking on spongy pine needles or moss? Is it muddy and it's suctioning at your feet? But really putting your focus into your feet. One thing I read that I really like is if your attention is on your feet, it can't be anywhere else. Namely, it cannot be in your head. So this is a great way to almost get into a walking meditation of putting all of your attention in the soles of your feet, even up to lower leg, feeling how your muscles are balancing as you take a step, how when the ball of your foot is on the ground versus your heel, if you have a slight incline, how are those muscles acting differently when you move uphill versus downhill? Great way to get out of your head, start connecting to the place that you're at, and using your feet to help you do that. And then we'll start working through the senses. I like to start with sound. I highly recommend finding a place you can sit and feel comfortable closing your eyes for 10, 20 minutes. Maybe it's leaning up against a tree, sitting on a log, even sitting on a park bench, but a good place where you feel comfortable seated with your eyes closed for a while. It takes a little bit for our brains to turn off and just start hearing what's around you, seeing how many different sounds you can notice, whether it's bird call, there's probably going to be some cars or planes or people noise in the background. That's fine. It's all part of the soundscape. But just hearing what's going on around us. We're so, as humans, so geared towards seeing. That's a great chance to let our eyes rest, turn our ears on, and see if you can hear some of the more subtle sounds behind the dominant ones. Can you hear the wind in the trees? Can you hear the leaves rustling? Maybe there's some water running somewhere in the background. Just sitting and listening. Then we'll move on to touch. This one I think is a great way to let your inner child out for a little while. How often these days do you get down on your hands and knees or sit on the ground and get your hands in the dirt? Pick up you know, if you're seated somewhere, what can you reach from where you are? Picking up pine cones or rocks or some moss or leaves. If you've got something in your hand, again, closing your eyes for a minute and just feeling the weight, the temperature. Is it damp? Is it dry? What's the texture of that object? Feeling different leaves around you. If you're in the woods, please make sure you know what nettles look like before you start grabbing leaves. And I learned this year, thimbleberry leaves are like velvet. Apparently I hadn't touched them before. That was my fun new touch revelation from this year. Feeling the different texture of tree bark. Just, you know, where's the dirt, wet or dry? How does it feel different under a log? Crumbling up a bit of decaying log. It's really getting in there and letting your hands explore the world. I also think, again, during our COVID times, as somebody who lives by myself, I've lost that sense of physical touch with other living beings for a few months now. I'm not hugging my friends. And while touching plants and trees does not fully fill that gap, it's better than nothing. It's what I've got. So I actually have a cedar tree in the woods near my house that I try to get up there once a week and just lean against that tree for a few minutes just to be touching some other solid, alive something. It helps a little bit. So we've got sound, we've got touch. I will just quickly mention taste. If you know what you're doing, or maybe if you're in your own yard or your own garden, feel free, taste leaves, taste berries, only if you know what they are. That's not my area of expertise, so I'm not gonna dive deep into taste. You can always just skip taste. Better safe than sorry on that one. But if you're in your yard, pop a cherry tomato or strawberry or something in your mouth. And then we get to my new favorite, and that is smell. This is one that, again, as humans, we don't exactly get to know our surroundings with our noses. Maybe take a cue from your pets, they do that. But I went on an amazing forest bathing walk led by another woman, and she had us down on our hands and knees smelling everything. She had us smelling sticks and decaying logs and rocks, and it was fascinating. I highly recommend giving yourself a good amount of time just to go smell the woods. If you take nothing else away from this talk, smell the moss. That was my favorite. Maybe not right now. The moss is definitely hibernating while we've been so dry, but once we get a bit more rain and it comes back to life, stick your nose in a patch of moss as close to the ground as you can get. I don't know. For me, it's a wonderful smell. Now I do it all the time, smelling different types of moss on trees, moss on logs, rocks. You can always, anything else that's out there, find some leaves or needles and crush them up in your hands and let them release the oils so you really get that deeper smell. I like to scratch the bark of a cedar tree a little bit with my fingernail and smell that, and then crush a little bit of the cedar bough and smell that. And it's amazing how completely different the smells are from two different parts of the same tree. So have fun with it. I think this is a great way to get us out of our head because it is a different way of getting to know nature. And then our final sense, I leave it for last, and that's sight. Leaving that for the end because it is the one that we rely on and depend on most of the time. So I kind of try to bring it into the picture at the end so it doesn't dominate the other senses. And again, because we often are looking at eye level, maybe just a few feet in front of us, it's a good reminder to vary what you're looking at. So looking up, viewing the shadow play on the tree canopy, seeing how many different leaves are around you. Nature's got some fascinating patterns. So looking up and looking at the patterns of the overlapping tree branches, or looking really closely at different leaves and the patterns of the veining, the patterns in ferns, pine cones, I think are gorgeous. Looking at the different patterns in the tree bark. How many different colors can you see where you are? Right now, that question tends to be how many shades of green and brown can you find? But the yellow and the oranges are coming. We'll have some more color out there soon. Looking really tiny, you know, what are the different tiny little bits of lichen that are out there and the different susical shapes that they make? Can you see any signs of critters or homes where birds or other wildlife might be living? It's just a good opportunity to look in a new way and look for things that we don't necessarily always look at when you're out in nature. So that's our 5 senses, or 4, as the case may be if you leave taste out. And it's just that straightforward of really going out with the intention of exploring nature, using your senses, soaking up all those wonderful health benefits, doing it very slowly, very intentionally. And the discipline in this really comes from taking the time to do it slowly. If you can spend 10, 20 minutes on each sense, you'll really, I think, especially mentally, feel the difference at the end. Even I, who lead these walks, part of why I lead them is because if I'm out on my own, I don't always really slow down and spend that much time on each sense. But if I'm leading somebody else through the walk, then I'll do it. So, but try to really take that time. A few other exercises that you can add into the mix if you want. One very common one is finding a tree that you're drawn to and actually working through all of those senses with one tree specifically. So sitting up or leaning up against that tree and listening to the sounds around you, looking, feeling all the different textures that are on that tree, smelling the different parts of the tree, looking around, seeing how that tree interacts with its surroundings. What can you tell about maybe its life cycle from looking? And just, spending 10, 15 minutes getting to know that tree. Another exercise is to find a spot and sit for 20 minutes. Just sit as quietly as you can and let nature come to life around you. What birds start just hopping around, going about their business? Any other wildlife that might appear? Seeing how things are moving and interacting once they forget you're around. When I'm sitting quietly like that, I also recommend thinking about the things that are happening around you that you can't necessarily see or hear or touch. That might be remembering that the nutrients that are traveling up and down the tree you're leaning on, or the nutrients that are being exchanged through the roots of the trees that they're sharing with each other. There's fascinating studies and work coming out about how much trees are really communicating with each other that I love to think about when I'm out in the woods. You can think about what's growing that you can't see or is growing so slowly that it's hard to notice. What's decaying? Or is there fungus around you? Is there a nurse log that is decaying or supporting other life? Really thinking about all those different things that are happening in the woods or in nature that's not always obvious, especially if we're just walking on by. And then, of course, a great exercise to incorporate is just simply breathing. I think you probably hear that with the exercise classes. We hear that all the time, but taking some time just for some good deep breaths, and especially when you're outdoors and on that big deep inhale, thinking about the fact that you are inhaling all of those lovely health benefits from being outside and just thinking about those, just filling your body as you're out there is a great way to really be present and appreciate your time outside. So hopefully that is a little bit of inspiration to go spend some time outdoors. That's what I have to share today. I don't see any questions in the chat, but if people have them, happy to answer them.
That was great, April. Thank you. I didn't realize the smell of rain had like a reason behind it and the chemicals in the trees. That's cool.
A lot happening out there that we can't see. It's pretty fun.
Okay, so does anybody have a question? Either they want to type in the chat or they want to actually ask. I can unmute you if you want to go ahead and give me a wave.
Ooh, the benefits of gardening, I see somebody wrote in there. That one I haven't read up on as much, except to know that I just see articles all the time about the benefits of gardening. It's actually one of the best ways to be outside, in part because your hands are really in the dirt. And so you're not even trying to get out there and focus on touching things, you're just doing it. If you take your hands out of the gloves for a little bit and really get in the dirt, but I have read phenomenal articles about the benefits of gardening. I know that they're huge. I just don't necessarily know the specifics, but a great way to spend some time outside for sure. And a much easier way to taste things than in the woods.
Excellent. All right, are there any more questions? I don't see any, so I'm going to go ahead and let everybody unmute yourself. Go ahead and unmute yourself, and you can say thank you to April for coming in today.
Thank you, April. This is Marcia, and the name of your company again is?
Among the Trees.
Among the Trees.
Right, and April, if you could send me the link, that would be great, and I'll add it to our YouTube recording of this. So that's super fantastic.
I will have to just send you the Instagram link for now. The actual website is still under construction.
That's totally fine. Totally fine. Oh, okay. There's one more question from Joan.
That's a great one. Thank you. I actually meant to mention that, the effect of social distancing. I have taken some friends up for forest bathing walks, and I've been taking one, maybe two people at the most, specifically so that we can stay far apart. It's a nice thing about this practice. If you're doing it in an area that's not crowded or in a yard, you can easily keep your distance. I always have my mask on hand. The woods that I go to, there aren't a lot of people. But if I see anybody coming, I just have the mask on, or have the mask, put it on, and try to step way off the trail to make it easy to pass people. I also tend to go earlier in the morning when there aren't as many people out. And that's one of the reasons that I haven't been necessarily trying to lead groups right now. It just seems easier to wait. So I've taken maybe two people from the same household or one person out at a time for now.
Yes, social distancing and all of that.
Yep, it adds a wrinkle to this, that's for sure.
For sure. All right. Well, thank you so much for everything, April. That was great. And we will hopefully have you back soon.
Okay, thanks everybody. Enjoy your time outside. Go smell some moss.